microphone. Apologies for my hair. It's hat hair. I didn't look at myself before I went on. Hello. Are we here? Anything would be great at this stage of the game. Yes. Hello, Barry from the Netherlands. Can you hear me okay? Jennifer, looking forward to this live. Hey, welcome, Jennifer. Let me know who you are. Let me know where you are. Most importantly, let me know if you can hear me speaking. Sharon from Victoria, Canada. Hello. Gary Smith is here. Gary Smith, welcome. Gary Smith, you are now at the stage where if you weren't here, it would be a problem. And I'd be honest saying, where on earth is Gary? What is he doing? What could he possibly do that is better than watching me have a chat at the table? That's your own fault, Gary. But welcome. It's nice to have you here. Let me stop this from moving for a minute. Hello, KJ from Bristol via Sweden. Hello, Scott from Windsor, Canada. Welcome, Dave, an old man that makes bread. Nice one, Dave. Welcome, Pompey from North Yorkshire. Kelvin from Hampshire. Gary Smith, as always, here. Nice to have you. Karen from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Let's go one level deeper. I want to know if anybody is watching me in the bathtub. It's very irresponsible to have your telephone in the bathtub. You might drop it in the water. In the bathtub, on the bus, on a train. Pullman from Malaysia. Welcome. Arlene from Virginia, USA. Hello, Arlene. How are you? Nice to see you. Lois, Montreal. Oksana, nice to see you too. How are you? Mandy, this is wicked, you guys. There's so many of you here. It's lovely. Darlene from Indiana. Frank from Ireland. Yin Yan Chan from Hong Kong. Welcome. Stacy is not in the tub. Oh, Barry's on the couch. Nice one, Barry. Gavin's cooking up dinner. That's as long as you haven't got your phone in your hand while you're stirring a pot, I think you're going to be okay. Chris from Wigan. Hello, Mary. Hello, Sharon from Australia. Hello, Paul Beer. Hello, everybody. Hey, welcome. I hope you've enjoyed Sourdough September. What I'm going to do now, to save you from commenting and me not reading it, and to save me from trying to read all your comments and actually not speaking very much, is turn the comments off. In fact, they went away by themselves. Oh, no, they've come back. I'm just going to turn them off now. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, Sean. Hello, Rita. Hello, Kenny. Hello, Ian, I'm going to turn it off now. Okay, let's get rid of that. Hold on. Okay, and now I can speak to you. Isn't that wonderful? I hope you've been enjoying Sourdough September. I think we broke the record this September for the amount of videos that went out, didn't we? I thought we would pop in at the end, which is quite nice that the last day of Sourdough September falls on a Thursday, and we can have a nice little live chat like this. Later on, we'll do a little bit of questions and answers. Let's have a look. The other day I did a little update video, so we don't need to do much housekeeping here today. Isn't that wonderful? I did a little update video, sitting at a table, having a chit chat about what was going on. That was on with music on that everybody hated. I got that memo. Thank you very much. It won't happen again, I promise. Where we spoke about what's going on in the shop. What else did we speak about? We spoke about this dry sourdough start I've been trying out and drying out. Which is really wonderful. If you missed it, it's here. It's now a month old. I'm going to give it another try on Monday to see if it comes back to life. And that will be a month since the day that I made it, because I want to get an idea of shelf life. Because the last thing I want to do is send dried out starters to everybody all over the globe for them to put water in and it to not work. That would suck for everybody. So I'm getting an idea of how long it actually lasts in its dried state and how well it comes back to life before I do anything about that. We spoke about merchandise. We spoke about the sourdough bundles and the new peel, which has been up there for a long time, teasing you all, and now it's in the shop forever. And the regular peels, which, by the way, all the peels now are made out of new, stronger, more robust material. They're pretty solid, and I'm really pleased with them. That's what I didn't mention in that video. So what have we covered? This Sourdough September, this is what we've done this Sourdough September. Let's have a look. I don't know if you've seen it all. We did, at the beginning, we did how to write a shortcut sourdough recipe, which is something that I do a lot. just to write a little recipe on a post-it note for myself, so that I don't forget what I'm doing all the time, and so that I don't get lost in a sea of text in a recipe. We spoke about that in 166. In 167, we did the tactical slash, which is what you can do if you feel like your loaf is slightly overproofed before you put it in the oven. Sometimes a big massive slash down the middle, you might lose your loaf. But if you employ the tactical slash, then you'll make it look nice, as well as saving as much puff as you possibly can. I did a loaf in a Dutch oven. Did you see that? I did a loaf in a Dutch oven, everyone. And it came out really lovely. That prompted a lot of questions about that black Dutch oven up there on the shelf, which is in fact a Challenger bread pan that was sent to me by Mr. Jim Challenger himself. He sent me that to have a play with, and I have been. But just like with that mixer that we spoke about a couple of months ago, I like to give things a proper go. Like a proper go before I tell you anything about it. Just so it's one thing if I get a product and I use it one time and tell you about it, I feel like that would be the wrong thing. I need to give it a proper, decent go before I talk to you about it. That's why it's still up there. But we did sourdough in a Dutch oven, which was fun. Oh yeah, we put a couple of shorts as well, didn't we? We did like a sourdough sling short and a feeding my starter short. We did how to keep your starter in tip-top condition. And today's video, if you haven't seen it yet, is was reviving a year-old starter. I had a starter in the fridge from a year ago, and I wanted to see if I could resurrect it, if I could make it come back to life. No spoilers for those of you who haven't seen it yet. And we got an editor in the house now, which I did mention in a video before. We got an editor, not in the house, in his own house, editing my videos for me, which is how come I can get all this stuff done. Isn't that wonderful? Because I can just send it to him and go, Toby, edit these videos. And he just edits the videos. Isn't that a mad concept? I say, can you edit these videos, please? He says, of course I can. He does it and sends it back. So today's one, he sent me, and he was like, I've just freestyled on this one for a bit. I hope you like it. I watched it and cracked up. I thought maybe it would be a bit too much for you guys, but I put it out there anyway. And it seems to be that you've been enjoying it, which is good. So we're just kind of having a play with things at the moment, which is a really nice position to be into, because traditionally what I would do is go, oh, I wonder if I can do this in a video, and it would take me about 9 hours to learn how to do it, and then it would look rubbish. So it's really nice to have Toby to help me out. So that's what we've done this year, Sourdough September. Let me check my notes. Yeah, there's 3 more sourdough recipes on the blog for you. Last Sunday I was back on the telly again talking about sourdough on Channel 4. And so I did 3 sourdough recipes and they went up on the blog. And they're 3 slightly different things you can do with your sourdough starter, aside from the big massive loaf that we all like to see. I did a wholemeal loaf with some whole grain wheat in it as well. And I shaped it like a ring. I'm going to show you how I did it. I shaped it like a ring. And it came out really lovely. And so for those of you saying, how do you do it with wholemeal flour? You can have a look at that recipe. It's pretty much the same thing, to be fair. I pretty much treat it in the same way, because in theory, wholemeal flour needs a bit more soaking. And yet in the sourdough recipe, it's long. It's got plenty of time to soak. And I did it in a ring by using the Bannerton basket, as usual, except I just popped a little cup in the bottom like this. I popped a little cup there in the middle, underneath the cloth, and that keeps your ring in a ring. So there you go. If you want that recipe, go and check it out. There's 2 more recipes on there. One of them is a pikelet recipe, which is kind of a cross between a crumpet and a pancake, which actually came out really nice, using sourdough starter. For some of you who may have discard, I don't, but at times I do feed my starter up at times and then don't make the bread out of it, so I've got a starter. And it's a nice way to use it in those crumpet / pikelet / pancake things, really tasty. And also, I did like a sub roll, like a semolina coated sweet potato and thyme sub roll. It's on the blog, you'll find it. 3 new recipes for you on there to have a go at with your sourdough starters. And in fact, while we're talking about those sweet potato subs, I made that with a white starter. And you all know that I use a rye starter normally. I always use a rye starter, and I don't have a white starter, and I don't like the idea of having different kinds of starters for different occasions all inside of my fridge. And so what I did was I took my rye starter scrapings, scooped out a tiny piece, put it in a separate jar, and fed it up with white flour and water to then make a starter for the sweet potato sub rolls, and it came out really nice. You'll have seen on Instagram a picture of the lowest bubbly starter. It came out really lovely, and it's a nice thing you can do additionally if you are using your rye starter like me, and you want to get a new dimension out of it. Clever, hey? All right, so before we launch into questions, I'm going to check the comments box, which is down here on a computer screen. Isn't that clever? This is where I read it, and you're all in there going, mate, I can't hear you. Your mic's off. But hey, you're all chatting, which is great. That was a fun video. Sharon says that was a fun video, the year-old sourdough start one. That's good. I'm glad that you liked it. I'm glad you liked it. Right. So I think we will cut to the chase today. I reckon we'll do like half an hour or so of questions, 20 minutes, half an hour questions, I reckon. If that's okay with you. Mate, you're on mute. Is that Gavin? Are you serious? I hope you're joking. Stitching me up, Gavin. I think what we'll do, we'll do like 20 minutes, half hour, your questions. I've jotted a few down that have popped up in the week that I haven't been able to make videos out or talk about a lot. And so, thanks, Gavin, you're joking, I get it. Thanks, man. All right, cool. So there's a couple of questions here from some of you that have popped up. First one is, this is a good question. So how much flour and water can you add to your sourdough starter? Scrapings. We use the scrapings. I use the scrapings technique here, and you must know by now. It's literally the tiniest bit of starter clinging to the outside of my jar that I keep in the fridge, and then I feed it when I need it, right? But there's such a small amount in there. You can feed it up for 1 loaf or 2 loaves. Even if you're making 4 loaves, that's 400 grams of starter in total. You can feed it up and probably get away with it. In class, when I've done classes in the sourdough, we make 10 loaves in one go. In fact, we make 10 loaves in one go. We also make rosemary and potato rolls, and we make rye bread as well, and we make a olive and caperberry bread. And so I need lots of starter. I need about 3.5 kilos of starter, I think is what it is, if I remember rightly, which is a lot. And if I fed my starter that, for example, it would probably not be too happy about it. It's not going to puff up crazy by the next morning. And in scenarios like that, when I feel like I'm probably adding too much in one go, I will add a little bit in the morning just to get it going, and then the rest in the evening. So I might add, 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water, making 100 grams of starter, because I know that's going to puff up by the evening time. And then to that, I would take it out into something bigger and then give it the big feed. So I reckon with your scrapings, you can get away with 1 loaf, 2 loaf, 3 loaves, 4 loaves. Above that, just give it a little tiny feed before, even if it's 25 water and 25 flour, feed up to 50 grams. Even if you do that in the morning, that will give you enough bulk and enough activity to then carry on the next big feed over into the night. Does that make sense? A little feed in the morning and a bigger feed in the evening time. There's another question here as well. Gavin left this earlier about salt. Gavin says he used 10 grams of salt for 1 kilo loaf of bread, as in, and I assume that to be 1 kilo of dough, which is around about 500 grams of flour-ish, probably. I mean, it's not, but it's pretty close. I never go by the weight of the dough. I go by the weight of the flour, because the water fluctuates a little bit, and I never hope to achieve a specific weight of dough, if that makes sense. So what I'm guessing, Gavin is using 10 grams of salt for that size loaf, which I would consider half a kilo of flour. And that's pretty standard, although I tend to use about 8 grams of salt for half a kilo of flour. You need some salt in there, otherwise stuff just doesn't develop properly. They kind of, if anybody's made a loaf without salt before, I've certainly done it a lot, And when I get to the shaping stage and it's puffing up, I'm thinking, hold on, something's not quite right here, because it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel as strong as usual. It doesn't puff up as robust as normal. Kind of gets crinkly and loose. And it's because there's salt. Salt contributes in one way or another to the structure and the strength of the dough. So you need some. But you can still cut it down to your taste. I recently have cut it down to 8. I feel like when you're in 6 gram territory, you can't really taste it as much and things tend to get a little bit bland, but that's my personal taste. But you could probably get away with 6 grams per loaf if you wanted to. Like with a lot of things, try it, give it a go. Cutting it down by 2 grams at a time or even 1 gram at a time, it's not going to affect the structure too much. So give it a go and see what you like the most. Another question from Anne Griffiths, who would like to remain anonymous. We'll cut that bit out later, Toby, please. Oh no, we're live. Anonymous is, she says, adding a pinch of yeast to my sourdough lightens the loaf. Is that okay? And to you, Anne, I say, no. Of course it's all right if that's what you want to do. Technically, though, you're not making sourdough, because sourdough is bread without yeast. And a lot of the time you'll see in the supermarket sourdough and have yeast on the packet, because it's not really making sourdough either. The skill of the sourdough is to make the loaf with a sourdough starter in place of yeast to puff up nicely, and the time that brings the flavour. That's the skill of the sourdough. You can use, of course you can use, if you're at home and you want to use a little bit of yeast in your recipe, of course you can. Pop it in, and then you're not technically making sourdough, but you are making a loaf that's going to puff up, that's going to help you out and probably be a bit of your safety net. If that's what works for you, make that hybrid loaf and eat it and enjoy it, and don't listen to what anybody else says. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my attention to this screen down here where I have your comments. So let's have a look at what you're saying, shall we? I think that's all the ones I've written down. Let's have a look at what's going on. Wow, my goodness. All right. What is the highest hydration possible for bread, says Jarius. Oh, I've probably said that really wrong. Jarius? Sorry. I don't know what the highest hydration is. It depends on the flour, I'd imagine, because the more brown flour you have, the more water you can get in when it sucks it up. I've seen people do breads with 100% water. 100% water, 100% hydration, that's equal parts water and flour, which is crackers, but there are ways and means. And it probably depends on the brand of the flour as well, because all flours do slightly different things. Even one strong white bread flour to the next, I always say, is different. They absorb a different amount, they feel different, some of them flow more, some of them stay more together. Some of them that I discovered actually have additional gluten in, added into the flour, which strikes me as being absolutely crackers, but it happens, and in those scenarios you probably be in more success of making a loaf. But then again, is the additional gluten cheating? You'd be able to make a higher hydration loaf with it, but is it cheating? I don't know. I suppose the answer to the question is, I don't know how far you can go with it, and if you want to find out, try it. It's the answer to everything, right? Try it. Every time you make a loaf, up it a little bit and see how you feel. See how comfortable you are. See how much difficulty you have shaping it. If you get really high and you can't do nothing with it, stick it in a tray and make focaccia, and that additional moisture. When I make focaccia, I put loads of water in, because it's the additional moisture that brings that lightness, and because it doesn't need to rely on having a proper shape, because it's all in a tray. Pour it into a tray, top it off with some delicious olives and olive oil and herbs and garlic or whatever you like, and bake a delicious, tasty focaccia with it. Experiment. As long as your heart's not set on that beautiful loaf, you can always turn it into something else and probably get away with it. Robin Goodhand says, Jack, is there a big difference between strong flour and rye flour for sourdough starter feed? Yes, there is a difference. I use rye because it's robust, and that's the way I like it. The biggest difference is, if you are doing equal parts water and flour, they are going to be of different consistencies, because equal parts of flour and water of rye flour makes a real thick hummus consistency, right? And a lot of people are surprised when they see my starter because it's so thick. It's like a really thick mixture. And if you do equal parts white flour, strong white bread flour, and water, it's going to be much more liquid. And that has to be accommodated in your final recipe, which is always interesting. It always interests me when a recipe says, use 200 grams of your sourdough starter, right? Because whatever your sourdough starter is made out of, it's going to completely affect dough in the end. All my recipes on the blog say use your rye starter. This is how we do it. And here's a link to your rye starter recipe. Because it matters. If someone steams in, use a white starter in the same recipe with the same water and the same flour added to it after to make the loaf, it's going to be much more liquid dough because it started with a much more liquid starter. Does that make sense? So it has to be accommodated. I'm not sure how much to accommodate it by, but I would certainly cut down the moisture in a recipe that states use a rye starter if I was using a white starter, for example. And the other way around, I'd increase it if I was using rye for a recipe that uses a white one. That's the biggest difference. And of course, like with all flours that you use, there's difference in flavour, difference in texture in the final loaf. It's huge. Even somebody in one country using the same flour and water as you in your country when using the same flour and water. It's all this stuff contributes, which is the magical thing about sourdough. Just have a sip of my water while I'm perusing the comments. Mary Barish has a sourdough on her counter waiting for its second fold. Why are you watching me talk? Lovely. I'm guessing you're not here in the UK, because if you are, you're going to be up late making a sourdough if you're on your second fold. All right. Okay, hold on. John Barnard says, is there a reason why just the base of my sourdough is so very thick? It almost needs a chainsaw to cut it. Baked in a casserole dish in an Aga, 40 minutes covered, 15 to 20 uncovered, at 230 degrees C. All right, John. That's a long baking time. 40 minutes plus 15 to 20, that's an hour, isn't it? Is that an hour? Someone do the maths, get back to me, please. I think that's an hour's baking time. In an Aga, okay, so your Aga, at 230 degrees C, that's hot. That's hot. Okay, so it's hot. It's in there for 1 hour. Just writing this down. It's in a casserole dish. And not only that, but I'm assuming, being in an Aga, it's either on the solid, it's probably on the solid base of the oven. You probably put in that dish. I would do that. Put the dish on the solid, hot base of the oven, therefore creating maximum oven spring, which is good. Yes, I think you're baking it too long because it's going to be properly hot in that Aga on the bottom, and it's going to be properly hot because of your casserole dish, and you've got the lid on for 40 minutes. And I would normally bake a whole loaf in 40 minutes. I appreciate in an Aga, things do take a little bit longer. I always bake a little bit longer if I'm doing a course in somebody's house in an Aga. But what I would do, I'm assuming the last 15-20 minutes bake is to get the colour on the top. And so I would take the lid off sooner. I would just take the lid off sooner. Perhaps take it down to 30 minutes in your casserole dish with the lid on, and then take the lid off and brown it off. Or even when I did it in the Dutch oven, I did it 20 minutes. I know it's different in mine than it is in your Aga, but try cutting the baking time down a certain extent, and perhaps try baking in a cold casserole dish if you are preheating your casserole dish, because maybe it's just too much heat underneath for too long. That's the only thing I can think of. Also, if you are proving in the basket, your loaf's going to be upside down in your fridge, and if you keep yours bare to the wind like I do, it has a nice thick skin here, which is dry, so it doesn't stick to my peel. If you're doing that, that probably contributes as well. That thick skin on the top then becomes your underneath, and then you've already started your foundation of a nice thick crust without even thinking about it. So try and cover it up with something not cling film, like a folded up cloth, like a doubled up or tripled up cloth, And now there's flour all over my lap. I hope that helps you, John. I hope that helps you, John. I love this little moment where I'm just looking over here and you're waiting to see what I'm going to talk about next. What is the longest time you've left your scrapings in the jar without using it? Well, as we've seen in today's video, I have in fact left the starter for a whole year. And it may or may not have come back. The longest time I've left scrapings in a jar without using it, probably a long time, months at least. 2 or 3 months, something like that probably, without feeding it, and it's been okay. Sarah's Grammy. That's probably the longest. Oh my goodness, what happened? Robin Sharp. Yes, Robin. I stopped making sourdough because my bread was always dense and sticky. What am I doing wrong? Robin, some people love it dense and sticky. That's just the way. Other people don't. I'm one of those. I like a little bit of tackiness. This, I believe, is down to fermentation time. We've talked about this before. There's a video on the channel called What is Over Fermentation and When Might It Happen to You? And I think that's probably what's happening to you, is that your dough has been left until it's at the point of fermenting too much, therefore breaking down the inside, breaking down the structure, and that's where you get that stickiness, gumminess from. However, yeah, if you don't like it, you need to cut down your fermentation time, the bulk time between when you mix it and when you shape it. Slim that down a little bit. Maybe it's warm where you are, stuff's fermenting faster. I don't know. Maybe your starter's super active. Could be. Reduce the time between when you mix it to when you shape it, and it will ferment less, and pop it in the fridge. Even if, like I always do it overnight, I don't really think about it. But you could just put it in the fridge for a few hours if you wanted, and bake it if you've got the time. Less fermentation time is, I think, is what the answer is for you. Thanks for the answer, Jack. You're welcome, Sarah's Grammy. We haven't frozen, I'm just reading. Nancy Nemeth says, I've tried using my Dutch oven rather than a stone baking my SDB, sourdough ball, right? It seems to rise much more and retain the moisture. Great results, good. I'm pleased. I got great results in the Dutch oven too, and if I was baking a sourdough ball on the regular, I'd probably pop it in there. It's great, worked really well. Don't keep your sourdough starter in the fridge door. Oh, Christos Loanu, sorry, has a tip for us all. Don't keep your sourdough starter in the fridge door. It heats up just a little bit every time you open the door, right? Probably, yeah, that makes sense. Keep it at the back. It goes bad faster, leave it at the back. Laughing face. That's a good tip, Christos. What are you laughing for? That's great. Even SN Hath says it was great. Do you use diastatic malt powder in your bakes by Pompey Exile UK? Malt powder? No, but I do use malted flour sometimes. It's probably got malted powder in it when I think about it. It's probably in there if I read the packet. No, I don't use malt powder. I've used that liquid malt that looks kind of like gluey. It's really quite cool. And I feel like any kind of malt that's in there tends to speed things up a little bit. I think because the malting process, whatever that's called, it's probably called malting, releases some sugars out, stuff like that, and that's food for the yeast, that speeds it up. I don't know. But it changes the dimension if you like Maltesers, you like malted things. Malted bread is wicked. Dolly Mixture says, what's your opinion of a Pullman tin with a lid? A Pullman tin with a lid, a Pullman, I'm saying that all wrong, aren't I? Pullman is probably what it's called. Pullman pan. I don't know anymore, I've said it too many times. A Pullman pan with a lid is a loaf tin with a slidey lid that compacts everything. So when you bake it, it comes out square sliced like you get in a shop. And if that's your cup of tea, go crackers. There's probably a little bit of trial and error involved in terms of getting the amount of dough correct, so it doesn't bust the lid off. I don't know if that would happen, or so that it reaches the lid. If that's your cup of tea, go for it. I've never used it. Maybe that's a subject for another day. Pullman pan with a lid, huh? Bacon in a Pullman pan. Write that down. All right, a few more, I reckon, for the next... What time is it? Oh, 8 o'clock, okay. 5-10 minutes, I reckon, for a few more, if that's okay with you. Then we'll round off Sourdough September. Sourdough September is great because it fills my head with questions every time I make sourdough. And therefore, I come up with, there's ideas in here, thinking, oh, I want to try this. I want to give this a go. I wonder if I can revive that year-old starter, for example. Or I wonder if I should get a Dutch oven this year, which I did. Right? It fills my head with interesting, exciting things to explore and try, which is why I really like Sourdough September. And what was I talking about? That's why I really like Sourdough September. However, it's a lot of work because recipes take like days. Videos take a couple of days, takes a lot of planning timing wise to be able to get the footage that I need to get, even for a short video. Like the mixing up a sourdough starter one. That's short, that was like 30 seconds long. You know, I've got to feed it, leave it to puff up, film it again the next day when it has puffed up, just for one simple thing. And also, for the TV last weekend was 3 new recipes that I hadn't done before that I had to create. And recipe testing takes time, and when it's sourdough, it's like a few days at a time. And if it's not quite right, and I want to redo it again, I've got to kind of wait for those few days together the next week or the following week or stuff like this. So there's a lot of work involved in it. I'm always really excited about it, but when we get to the end, like today, it's really nice to breathe and move on and do something new, and that's what we're going to do in the next couple of weeks. Jim Patterson says, Dutch oven is the best purchase I've made for sourdough bread. Good for you, isn't it nice when you find that thing? When you find that thing and you're like, pa-ping, this is really helping me out. I find it and I've cracked it. Joanne Wilkins said, if I'm making pizza with a sourdough, would I alter the hydration? Thanks. Alter it from what is the question. If you're using my recipe, I'd probably keep it the same. Sourdough loaf recipe, take it to the dividing stage, divide it up into 5 out of 1 loaf, 10 if you're doing 2 loaves, refrigerate them, bish bash bosh, pizzas, leave them in there for a few hours, and then you've got pizza day. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Barry Holloway says, what is your daily bread, Jack? Sourdough or yeasted? Well, Barry, you see, doing what I do, there is no daily bread most of the time. We just kind of eat whatever's left. Whatever we got, whatever's happening is what we eat. So we had the wholemeal ring a couple of times from the recipe on the blog. We had those sweet potato subs and we just kind of have whatever. Rarely do I actually make bread. Although the other day I made bread just for us and I made 2 loaves, and because the sourdough subs came out of the fact that I've been obsessed with sub rolls for a long time. And so I made a loaf, a little bit buttery, and I coated the outside with semolina. So I wanted a real soft loaf on the inside, and I wanted that crunch factor on the outside, like a sub roll in a loaf form. It was wicked tasty. So that was the last bread I made for us as a family, which was last week probably. Can you bake a cake with sourdough? Nicolette Bosch Oven. Bosch Oven. Is that your name, or have you got a Bosch Oven? It's probably your name. Sorry about that, Nicolette. Can you bake a cake with sourdough? Yes, you can bake a cake of sourdough. If anybody's watching this now who has not had a sourdough cake, as soon as this finishes, not now, we're not done. As soon as this finishes, don't click away. Google Herman, what's it called? Herman friendship cake. Because every once in a while in your life, a little pot of stuff will come around from your friend with a photocopied recipe with it. And on that photocopied recipe, it will have your instructions to feed this little pot, divide it up and give it to 3 of your friends with photocopied recipes. And with your piece, you make the most delectable cake in the world. And it is so tasty that I just used the word delectable for the first time, I think, ever. And this is the kind of principle behind things like the pikelets recipe I did the other day. Because the cake tastes like cake, but doesn't just taste like cake. It tastes like the most incredible cake. And you can't quite put your finger on what it is behind it, although there's a fullness of flavour that just fills your mouth with loveliness, and it's incredible. And the pikelets that I made the other day had a similar effect to it. You can make pikelets with a yeasted thing or no yeast at all. You can make pancakes. But a pikelet made with sourdough starter has got that kind of underlying flavour. You don't know what it is, but it fills your mouth with a much fuller flavour, and it's wicked delicious. And that's the difference between eating something and going, oh yeah, that's nice, and eating something and going, yes, wow, what did you do? And the answer is just that little bit of sourdough starter. Same in a cake. After this is finished, Google Herman friendship cake. Make one for your friends because it's wicked. Robin Sharp, thanks for the advice from NZ, New Zealand. You're welcome. Couple more things on here, and then we'll call it a night, I think. Supermarine, large casserole, Pyrex upside down. I use as a Dutch oven. Works a treat. I've seen this. Pyrex, those Pyrex glass dishes with the lid on that people make cottage pie in or whatever, are often used in place of a Dutch oven. That gives me the willies a little bit because it's glass and it makes me think it's going to explode or crack or blow up. I don't know if that happens, it probably doesn't because they make them for ovens. But if you have one of those base pieces, you upturn it on top of your loaf, bada bing, bada boom, Dutch oven. That is a nice tip from, can't remember what your name was. Oh, you're lost. Supermarine. Thanks, Supermarine. Relly P says, when is the book coming out? Christmas? No, it's not coming out at Christmas. It is actually up on Amazon for pre-order. It's coming out on May the 5th. And there's going to be more details for you soon. Because every time we did something with a book, I filmed it. So there should be a whole load of car crasher footage. I'll just put in an email to Toby, say, make a video out of that, please. So there'll be more little things coming up about that. And in fact, I received a copy, the latest copy over there the other day, at the stage that it's at now, to look up for edits. And every time I see it, it's looking absolutely crackers, and I think you're going to love it. I think you're going to love it. I hope you're going to love it. It's got a lot of work in it, and I'm really proud of it. It's absolutely bonkers. All right, let's do, what time is it? Okay, let's do 2 more questions, okay? And then we'll say good night for tonight. And we'll also say farewell to Sourdough September. But that doesn't mean that you can't make sourdough after today, okay? Keep making it. I probably will be every once in a while. But we won't be doing it on the channel, I don't think. Every time I pop in here, Sourdough September, I think to myself, let's do it September. And let's do it another time, like halfway through the next bit of the year. Like 6 months later. What is that? May? I don't know. Maybe we should do that twice a year, dedicated sourdough thing. Otherwise, I feel like everything gets in a bit of a mess. So maybe we'll do that. I'll try and remember this time round when it comes round to do another little sourdough thing halfway till the next Sourdough September. But do continue making sourdough because there's plenty and plenty and plenty to learn. Jim Patterson, are sourdough crusty rolls a thing? Yeah, sourdough crusty rolls are a thing. Roll up your dough into rolls. The principle is slightly different. When you're making a loaf and anything you're stone baking, you are not taking it to its full puff. You're taking it to this puff. And the big increase in volume, this puff, happens in the oven, and that's what bursts it open the top and makes it wonderful. If you're making things in trays like crusty rolls, for example, you're going to make them crusty, or like rolls or things in tins, whatever, you need to let them puff up to its maximum. They'll get a little jump in the oven, but nothing major, because that's not what we're in the game for. We just want rolls that are crusty. Yes, they're completely a thing. Roll your dough up at your dividing stage into rolls, put them in a tray, let them prove up until they're quite delicate. It's going to take a few hours probably. Let them prove up till they're quite delicate and bake them. Because they are small, they won't be baking for 40, 45 minutes like a loaf, and so they won't have the exact same crust as your loaf does, because they're not in the oven. If they're in the oven for that long, they'd be rock hard most of the way through, which is not what you want. So bake it on a high heat with plenty of steam. You might need to let the steam out. Well, I never really do that. Bake it on a high heat with plenty of steam, and if it's not as crusty as you'd like, bake it a little bit longer. But like with all these things, test it and practice. You could do 2 trays of rolls. Bake one, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes on maximum heat without turning it down, and plenty of steam, and take them out. Let them cool and see what you think about it. Because it's sourdough, your second tray, it's going to take its sweet time to puff up anyway, and you could get away with leaving it on the side for a while. And then test that one. Do it for 25 minutes or 30 minutes and see which one you like the best. But keep trying and keep practicing and keep playing with those variables. The most important thing is high heat, steam, and the time that you leave it into the oven. Completely a thing, Jim. I hope that helps you out. One more question. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Lex is checking in from New York. Hey, Lex. Welcome to England. I hope you like it here. This is it. This is basically it. We have tea and crumpets and scones or scones here in England. It's wonderful. Mediha says, gluten-free sourdough starter video, please. Sorry, Mediha. I don't do gluten-free. It's not my bag. I personally would have tried to make that work, but now I accept I'm not the guy. There will be a hero for you one day, and he or she will fly in with a cape on their back and make gluten bread for the world, and everyone will cheer. But it's not me. I'm sorry. One more question. All right, Michael Winningham. This is a wicked question. I'm so pleased you asked this, Michael. Michael asks, is there such a thing as an enriched sourdough? Oh, okay, right. So when Sunday Brunch called me last time, and they were like, mate, can you come and make sourdough on Channel 4? I was like, yeah, I'll come make sourdough, Chef. No problem, I can do that. I thought to myself, let's do something sweet, right? Enriched sourdough is a thing. But everything that you put into an enriched dough, eggs, milk, sugar, and butter, slows down the puff. And your sourdough is already slow. It's already properly slow. Yeah, so it slows down the puff even further, making recipes take ages. And there's a level of faff that I'm happy with. There's a level of there's a level of commitment to dough that I will give to the dough. There's much of myself I will give to the dough. And there's a level of faff, you know what I'm like. There's a level of fluff I'm not into. I'm just like, I'm over it. Let's keep things simple. Let's commit ourselves to the dough in a simple way without faffing around too much. And so I started researching enriched sourdough recipes, and a lot of them made a starter, and then a pre-ferment, and then a dough that then stayed at a certain very specific temperature, quite warm, around 35, 37 degrees, overnight, and then after shaping, spent the following day at that very specific temperature, puffing up for the next stage. So yes, it is possible. And they are out there. Go and have a look into the world. You'll find it. But they're long, like properly long. And I did a few trials, and I came up with my own recipes and tried them out, and I increased the starter and see if that would help. But everything kind of seemed to puff and then hit a plateau and not really do a lot after that. And some of it I kept 4 days. Some of it I kept for days to see if anything would happen, and it didn't really happen all that much. And I think the key is keeping things properly warm for a long, long time and really going to town and committing to that dough. It's a big, long faff, and it was too much faff for me. And I think, Michael Winningham, give it a go, man. Come up with something incredible. The Michigan agrees. I do make enriched sourdough. I do make enriched sourdough. Nice one. And yes, it takes a long time. There you go. It does. And maybe another time in life I'll come back to it and have another little play and see what I can come up with. But hey, thanks for popping in today. Thank you so much for coming. It's been really nice. There's 305 of you out there. There's probably 405 before I said that thing about Herman the cake, Herman the friendship cake. That's when 100 of you left. Herman the friendship cake. Go and have a look after this is finished. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed Sourdough September. I hope you continue to enjoy me and Toby having a play with the edit of the videos, seeing what entertaining stuff we can come up with. Next week we'll be back with something that isn't sourdough. And I think that's it. So hey, I hope you've enjoyed this year's Sourdough September and all the videos attached to it. There'll be more videos. There's going to be more shorts because they're really easy to make now and I think they're really useful. Stuff that I can't make a whole video out of, I can just explain to you in 30 seconds. Might be really fun to do. It has been fun. I hope you enjoy the rest. So, thank you very much. Don't forget there are sourdough bundles in the Bake with Jack shop if you want to go over there. And the new sourdough peel, which I'm really pleased with, a bit of rope on the top, looks wicked. And that's it. So now comes the awkward moment where I try and turn this off. I say goodbye, I turn off. Bye-bye everyone. Have a pleasant evening or morning or whatever time it is, whatever country you are. And remember, always remember, don't watch your phone when you're in the bath, okay? Because you might drop that thing. See you later.